Welcome back to Unveiling Islam. We are currently exploring the Quran. And Brother Rachid.
Yes.
I've heard that the Quran...
always hear stuff.
I've heard that the Quran is a miracle. And then looking into this, this is one of the main arguments, if not the main argument, that the Quran gives for its divine authority and inspiration. So are you familiar with this claim?
Of course. I think it's one of the first things we are taught when we're reading about the Quran. The Quran is unique. Nobody can produce anything like it. It's the miracle of miracles. It's the miracle that Muhammad had, and they always use, even at school, they used to use this. They say, in the time of Jesus, medicine was the most
Heard that many times.
Powerful thing, so that's why healing was the miracle of Jesus.
In the time of Moses, it was magic. So he did the most powerful magic.
Which is not true when you go, I mean, magic was all the time. Medicine, actually, we have the most powerful medicine today. So if Muhammad was going to do something, it should have been done now with medicine.
And then those same people will say, but in the time of Muhammad, poetry was the most amazing thing around.
And poets were everywhere. Yeah, the Greeks had poets.
Yeah, and where are they getting this from, that this is the most amazing thing of the time? When, if you read the sources, Muhammad's bringing up these chapters, and the unbelievers aren't impressed. They're saying, come on, anyone can do this.
Actually, Arabs, they ridiculed the Quran.
Yeah.
They ridiculed the Quran, and I can read later. Let us go through the challenge first.
All right. What is the challenge as laid out? Because this is important to distinguish. Like, there are Muslims who will say, there are scientific miracles in the Quran or something. But that's not a claim that the Quran. It's not the Quran saying, scientific miracles or something like that. But here, this is an actual argument in the Quran itself.
They say, for example, Surah 17, verse 88, Surah Al-Isra. Say, if mankind and the jinn gathered in order to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if they were to each other assistants. So us as human beings
can't do it.
And the jinn,
they can't do it either.
So it's the challenge for everybody. And Muslims believe this is true until today. Another one, and actually it started with the whole Quran. It went down to 10 surahs. For example, chapter 11, verse 13, Surah Hud. Or do they say he invented it? Of course he invented it. And the response, say, then bring 10 surahs like it, 10 chapters.
So now it's not the whole thing, it's just bring 10.
Bring 10. And then they say it came to 1. For example, 10:38, Surah Yunus, or they say about the Prophet, he invented it, say, then bring forth a surah like it. Bring one. And the shortest one has only 3 verses.
Yeah, very small.
So they say, bring just 3 verses.
Bring something tiny like that. And I want to give people a couple of examples of what we're talking about here with these shorter surahs. We also have, so the Quran repeats this over and over again. It does get down to just the challenge to one surah. We find the same thing in Surah 2, verses 23 to 24. If you are in doubt, so this is always a challenge for the unbelievers. This is supposed to impress us. Yeah. So this isn't supposed to just impress Muslims. It's supposed to be impressive to us. But he says, if you are in doubt concerning what we have sent down to our servant, then bring a surah like it and call your witnesses apart from God if you are truthful. And if you do not, and you will not, then be mindful of the fire whose fuel is men and stones, which is prepared for the disbelievers. So he's saying, if you can't bring a chapter like this,
and you would not,
and you won't, then get ready for hell. And this is so weird because, I mean, imagine someone coming up saying, hey, if you can't write a symphony like Mozart, like assuming this was, so even if this were the greatest thing we had ever seen, If someone came up and said, hey, if you can't write a symphony like Mozart, you have to admit that it's the music of God, I'd be like, what? That doesn't mean that at all.
If you can't write the crime and punishment for Dostoevsky, then Dostoevsky is a prophet.
Then he's a prophet, and you have to believe everything he says.
Well,
that's
very absurd.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. So,
and the problem, if I do something like it, they will say, you imitated it.
Yeah.
And if I do something different, they say, it's not like it.
Yeah, so there's no way. And that's the problem. This is supposed to be a challenge for us, but they set themselves up as the judges of the contest. And so it's, wait, this is a challenge for us. We're supposed to be impressed by this.
Let me tell you, if they say the jinn and us all together, we cannot produce something like this. There is a surah in the Quran called Surah Al-Jinn. The jinn are talking. Actually, the Quran is quoting the first 15 verses. He's just quoting the jinn, what they're saying. So here they produced 15 verses. So if somebody says, no, he was like summarizing or paraphrasing what they are saying, then he's not really faithful to what they have said. Since they talk Arabic and they say these words, he should just have quoted them. We have quotes from Pharaoh. We have quotes from Moses. We have quotes from everybody in the Quran. So
they're quoting in perfect Quranic verses. Yeah. That's how they're talking. And then the Quran records them, and they all talk exactly like the Quran talks.
Exactly. And the other thing is, as I said, Arabs ridiculed the Quran. For example, Surah Al-An'am 668. And when you see those who engage in offense discourse, means they're ridiculing the Quran, considering our verses, then turn away from them until they enter to another conversation. So they were not impressed. Actually, they ridiculed the Quran. And there is another surah, Surah Al-Nisa, 4:140. It says, and it has already come down to you in the book, which means the Quran, that when you hear the verses of Allah recited and they are denied by them and ridiculed, so do not sit with them until they enter to another conversation. And this is in Medina. Mm-hmm. So people made fun. It was like a show where people gathered and started making fun of the Quran. And Muhammad actually is sitting with them. And then Allah has to intervene. He said, get up and leave, because that's not nice, actually.
Yeah, there's also in Ibn Ishaq, there's that guy, Al-Nadir, who used to follow Muhammad around. Muhammad would get up and recite his revelation, and Al-Nadir would get up after him and also read some poetry of his own. And then he would challenge the Muslims and say, show me any way that Muhammad's verses are superior to mine. I don't think they did. They eventually killed him. After they captured him.
So, David, you are not impressed by the Quran?
No, let me give you an example, because if people aren't familiar with the Quran, you mentioned that some of these are extremely short. Let me give a couple examples. I will read a couple of complete chapters. These are complete chapters. So this is Surah 108. This is the study Quran, so they translate Allah as God. So Surah 108, in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, truly we have bestowed abundant good upon thee. So pray to thy Lord and sacrifice. Truly thine enemy shall be the one without posterity. Right. So that's an entire chapter.
Yeah.
Surah 109.
So you just read an entire chapter.
That's an entire chapter.
By the way, we use, as kids, memorize these first, so we can use
I know that. Nabil could quote all
so
this.
So you use them in the prayers because they're quick. It will not take us a long time. So we just say them, and we do our duty and we leave.
And so notice that the Quran's challenge is, hey, produce something like that. It's like, wait, some of these are only a couple verses. Surah 109. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, say, O disbelievers, I worship not what you worship, nor are you worshipers of what I worship, nor am I a worshiper of what you worship, nor are you worshipers of what I worship. Unto you your religion, and unto me my religion.
Like, who worships what?
No. This is the most amazing thing. No one can write something like that. I'll read one more, just because this is a famous chapter of the Quran, Surah 110. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, when God's help and victory come, and you see mankind entering God's religion in throngs, hymn the praise of thy Lord and seek forgiveness from him. Truly he is ever relenting. So Muslims look at this and they're impressed by this. And I would look at this and I would say, how can this possibly be considered so amazing that you don't think a human being could put words in this order? A human being can put words in any order, but then I get the response, Brother Rachid, it only works in Arabic. So
even in Arabic, Even in Arabic, it sounds funny sometimes. It sounds ridiculous. I mean, of course, sometimes there is poetry and you get like, for example, recited with beautiful voices and you think, wow, listen to that. But the meaning is empty. There is nothing in it. For example, can you read this in English, and I'll tell you in Arabic what it means. Surah Al-Nur in verse 60. Surah Al-Nur, which is 24, in verse 60 in English.
You sure it's not 61? Sometimes the numbering is different because of the Bismillah at the beginning.
Yeah, 61. 61. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Because this is an interesting verse. So you're saying this is not impressive.
No.
So it says in English, it is no fault in the blind, nor in the one born lame, nor in one afflicted with illness, nor in yourselves, that ye should eat in your own houses, or those of your fathers, or your mothers, or your brothers, or your sisters, or your father's brothers, or your father's sisters, or your mother's brothers, or your mother's sisters, or in houses of which the keys are in your possession, or in the house of a sincere friend of yours. There is no blame on you, whether you eat in company or separately, and it just keeps going on.
You know, I can summarize all this in one sentence.
What's that?
You can eat in your homes.
Hey, that would have been a pretty good way to say it, because that's what it says.
And plus the meaning, I mean, all human beings, they knew this, they can eat in their homes. It doesn't need
this wasn't something people were confused about?
The Romans were confused and the Greek were confused until the Quran came, and it was a huge revelation to them. They were like, all these years we didn't know that we can eat in our homes.
So you're actually pointing out, hey, he just said it's okay to eat at someone's house, but it says, oh, and if you're blind and if you're lame or if it's you, and yet
you still can't eat in your home, and it's just nonsense. Even in Arabic, it's nonsense.
So it's not impressive even in Arabic.
It's not impressive. And actually, Muhammad was challenged by Arabs to bring a sign, and he couldn't provide any. And plus, the Arabs say. This is in Surah Al-Anfal, 8:31. When our verses are recited to them, they say, we have heard. If we willed, we could say like this. This is not but legends of former people. So these are just legends.
They weren't impressed.
Yeah.
So they heard it and they said, hey, this is a bunch of legends. We've heard all this stuff before. And so the thing to keep in mind is this is the main argument of the Quran, or at least one of them. Yeah. The Quran is so amazing that it's a miracle in the Arabic language. We read it, it makes no sense. And the response from Muslims is, but if you knew Arabic, then you would see how beautiful it is, and you're saying it's not the case.
I know Arabic and I say no.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, you heard it here. The main argument for the Quran is a horrible disaster, and that's the best the God of Islam could come up with. We'll see if there are any more problems with any arguments here in upcoming episodes.